Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to go ahead and create our front end so that we configure it to work with our backend API. But we've forgotten one really important thing, and that is to create a route that creates refresh tokens. So refresh tokens are those that can help us to create a new access token in case our current access token has expired. So let me start by doing that. So I'm going to go to Visual Studio Code, and within my VS Code, I am going to create a route that helps us to create a new access token, but then it will require a refresh token that we acquire when we log in. So to do that, I'm just going to come down within our code, our authentication code. So I'm going to create a route. So this route is going to be at auth namespace dot route, and then this is going to be slash refresh. So this is going to be slash refresh. And within this, I'm going to create a class of resource. So this is going to be a refresh. So I'm going to just call it refresh. This is going to be our refresh resource. Then it's going to inherit from resource. After doing this, the next thing is going to be to protect this route because we shall require a token to access it. So to do this, I'm just going to come and say at JWT. Sorry for this. So this is going to be a JWT required. But then I'll pass in one argument, which is refresh equals true. So I'm going to say refresh is equal to true, and this is because we're going to require the refresh token for us to be able to refresh the current access token. So I'm going to create this method, and it's going to be a post method. So it's going to take in self. And now the next thing we shall do is to access the current logged in user. So to access the current logged in user, we are going to use a function called getJWT identity. So we're going to go to the top of our code, and what I'm going to actually do is to first fix this. I'm going to put this in parentheses, then our code is fixed. So I'll just come right in here, and then I'll say get JWT. So this is going to be get JWT identity. So after that, I'm going to come just below here, and then I'll access the current user. So I'll say current user. Our current user is going to be in this case, we're just going to say get JWT identity. And after doing that, we are going to create a new access token that's going to have the identity of the currently logged in user. So we're going to create a variable called new access token. So in this case, we're going to say new access token. And this new access token is going to be, we're going to use the create access token function. And this will take in the identity as the currently logged in user. So we shall say identity is equal to current user. So now after doing this, we are just going to return a response that's going to have our newly created token. So in this case, I'll just say make response personify, and then I'll just pass in access token. I'll say that we're going to return the access token. So our access token is going to be our new access token. So we're going to pass this in, and then we just give a status code of 200. Now after doing this, we are going to go ahead and test this in Insomnia. So you need to save, and hoping that server is running. It's not, so I'll have to start it. So I'm going to say python run.py. So we see that we're having oh, forgot, this is supposed to be a dictionary. So fix this and make this a dictionary. Save, and when I run the server again, this time we expect the server to run, so it's going to run. I'm going to head over to Insomnia, and I'm going to create a new request. So this new request is going to be a get. So this is going to be get refresh token. So I'm going to call this get refresh token, and then I'll call it a post method. So I'll create it, and after creating it, I'm going to go ahead and uh, make this method. So it's going to be http localhost. It's going to be localhost 5000 slash auth slash refresh. This is because it's on the auth namespace. So I'm going to require to create a header. So this header is going to be an authorization header. And now the value will be bearer than whatever refresh token we may have. So I'm going to try to log in a user. I'm going to come to the login endpoint and then try to send a new request. So the new request is going to come with the access token and a refresh token. So I'll grab the refresh token. So I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go ahead and provide it here. So I'm going to say bearer, then the refresh token. So when we send this, we see that we have been able to acquire a new access token. Now, since this is done, we are now sure that our API is working, and let's go ahead and develop our front end. So to start creating our front end, I am going to use create React app to create a React app in this current directory or in our project directory. So now, right now, you see I have a folder called the backend, which is holding all the Flask code we have. Then I'm going to create a front end folder, which I'm going to call the client folder. So in this case, I'm going to stop our server, or I may not stop our server, but what I may do is to create a new terminal here in VS Code. So I'm going to go ahead and say npx create. So this is going to be create React app. So make sure you have this. So npx is going to run this program called create React app, and then it's going to create for us a React app that's called client. It's going to create it within our folder. So you make sure you are at the root of our project. So I'm within the Flask recipes directory. So when I create this, all right, now since Create React app has finished creating our React application, we are going to go ahead and configure this application to work with our Flask API. So to do this, I'm going to first explore our directory. So we have a public directory, a source directory, and all the code we're going to write is going to be located within our source directory. So we have a package.json, and this basically has the different dependencies you're going to be using and the different commands that are going to run our application, stuff like that. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to go within our source. So I'm going to go in my terminal. And what I'll have to do is to cd into the client directory, because this is where I'm going to work with in React. So when I cd into the client directory, the first thing I'm going to do is to run our development service. To do that, I'm going to say npm start, and this is going to start our development server. So now we see that our development server has been started at localhost 3000. So let's try to see how our web app is going to be um, after creating it. So right now we see that our React app has been created successfully, and now we can see that it's located at localhost 3000. Now the first thing we're going to do if we need our API to work with our client is to have our cores set up. So what are cores? Cores are what we call cross-origin request sharing, or basically helping us to share resources between our client and an API that are located on different ports. For example, we are having our client running on localhost 3000, and then our backend API is running on localhost 5000. So if you want this to communicate, we'll have to configure our cores to work well. So to do that, we need to come within our VS Code, and then I'll go to our backend, and within our backend, I'll locate main.py that has this create app function. So before I go there, I'll have to first stop the server and install a very important package called Flask cores. Now, Flask cores is going to help us to generate these, to help our front end work with our back end so that we don't have cores errors. So to do that, I'll just say pip env. So I'll say pip env, then install Flask cores. So say Flask cores. Now this is going to install Flask cores in our project. Now that our Flask calls have been installed, I'm going to go ahead and configure our application to set up these calls for us. So to do that, I'm going to come and say from, sorry for this, so this is going to be from Flask. I'm going to say from Flask calls, I'm going to import course, the course class. So after importing that, I'll simply have to come and say course, now pass in the app. So this is basically configuring our API to work with an application that's located on a different port. So in this case, we are having our API running on localhost 5000, and yet the application is going to communicate to is located on localhost 3000. So after doing that, we shall run our server again. So I'm going to run our server by saying python run.py, and this is going to run our server. So this is going to run our server. Now we're having our server running as well as our React app running at localhost 3000. Now we're going to set up our React app to work with our API. First thing I'm going to do, so I'm going to minimize this backend folder. Now I'm going to go to our client, and within our client, I'll go to package.json. So let me first close this. So I'm going to come and within our scripts, actually not within our scripts, I'm just going to create a new proxy. So I'm going to write proxy, and then I'll write our localhost. So this is going to be our localhost 5000. What this line is going to do, it's going to enable us to communicate in our React app uh, to make these network requests, but then we shall not be making them to localhost 5000. So in this case, if we maybe were to make a request to localhost 5000 slash recipes, in this case, we'll just have to make it to slash recipes, just like you're going to see in this video. I'm going to save this and hoping that our client and server are running. When I go back to our React app, so in our React app, if I refresh, you see we don't have errors, so everything is working fine. So I'm going to stop the client, and then I'll actually not cd. What I'll have to do is to just remove all the files located within our source directory so that we start something from scratch. So what I'm going to do is to just come and delete all these files. So I'm going to remove all of them. After removing all of them, we are going to just create an index.js file. So I'm going to create a simple file called index.js. And within our index.js file, is where we're going to write the root of our application. It's where we're going to write, like, it's going to be the main file of our application. But to do that, I'm going to come and the first thing I'm going to do is to create a simple component, and then we shall make an API call to our API. So to do that, I'm going to say import React from, so I'm going to import React from React. And the next thing is going to be importing React DOM. So I'm going to import React DOM from, so this is going to be from React DOM. Then the next thing is going to be to create a simple app component. So to do this, I'm going to say const. So this is going to be const app. It's going to be simple. So I'm going to be using function-based components, and I'm going to be using state. I'm going to be using React hooks to manage our state. So what I'm going to do is to say this is going to be a function-based component, and it's going to return. What's going to return is in this case, we're going to just have a simple div. So I'm going to create a simple div, and this div is going to have a class. So I'm going to add the class name of app. So it's going to be app, and then we shall just have our message. So I'm going to just put in a message in here. So right now we don't have any message, so it will give us an error that the message is not found. I'm going to be using the useState hook to set the initial state of our message, and then making an API call so that we return our message. So to do that, I'm going to come and import the useState hook. So what I'll do is to say from React, import useState. So I'm going to import useEffect and useState. I'm going to import those. Now the useState hook is going to allow us to create the initial state of our message. So to do that, I'm just going to come in here and say const. It's going to be our message, and then to set our message, so going to destructure this array. So it's going to be post message and set message. So this will be equal to use state. So in this case, we're going to use state, and then the initial state of our message is going to be an empty string. So what we shall do is to actually export this app component. So we are going to say export. Actually, we are not going to export it, but we're going to register it to work with our React DOM. So to do that, I'll just come and say React DOM. Then I'll call the render method. And what you're going to render is our app component. What you're going to do is to render this app component. So I'll say app. And then we're going to render it in our document. Get element by ID. So we're going to render it within a div with an element with an ID of root. So I'll say root. So if you're wondering where this is, it's located within our public folder. So when I go to public and I go to index.html, this is where we are having the HTML that has a div with an ID of root. So I've got this div with an ID of root by accessing it using the document.getElement by ID, a function. So after doing this, let's try to save. When I save, hoping that our client app is still running, it's not running, so I'm going to start it again. So I'll say npm start. So this is going to start our client. So right now we see that since we don't have any message, it's basically returning to us localhost 3000, and it's not giving us any message. So let's go ahead and make our first API call to our API. So right now I have set the initial state of our var message to a blank string. I'm going to be using function-based components with React hooks. So just like you saw, I used the useState hook. I'm going to use the useEffect hook, just like I had imported it here, to make an API call every time we render our app component. So to do that, I'm going to come and say useEffect. So I'm going to use effect, and then the useEffect hook takes in a function, and then it also takes in a list of dependencies. So we're going to first take care of our function. So our function is just going to carry out a request to our API. So in this case, I'm going to discover which API endpoint you're about to make a request to. So I'm going to navigate back to our app and go back to our Swagger. So you see that the 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 route we are supposed to make to our request to return our hello world is the slash recipe slash hello. And the reason that's why we set up proxy in our package.json is instead of using things like http localhost 5000 slash recipe slash hello, we can actually just make a request to slash recipe slash hello and they get the response from the server. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say fetch, and I'll pass in recipe slash hello. So I need to come right down here and say .then. So forgive me for doing this functionality. Let's go ahead. So I'll say response. So I'm going to get a response. So I'm just going to be keeping things simple. I'm going to use the fetch API. So we shall just get a response dot JSON. So we convert our response to JSON. This is going to be response to JSON. And after that, we are going to just console log our data. So I'll say when we get our data, we're just going to console log it. We're going to just log it on the console. So let me fix this. And after fixing this, I'm going to save. And when I save, hoping that our server is running, when I go back to our front end app and I refresh, I'm going to try to inspect element and go to the console. So in this case, we are having an object logged to the console. So let's try to check this object out. Now this object has a message of hello world, and this means that we've successfully made a request to our API endpoint. So if we go back to our Visual Studio Code and we check our server, we see that we made a request to localhost 5000 slash recipe slash hello. We have been able to make our request. We're going to use the useState hook to make our message, to set the value of our message to our hello world message. So to do that, I'm just going to come and say post message, set message. Then I'm going to use this state modifier function. So what I'll do is to actually say, but then after console log in the data, so in this case, I'll just say dot catch. If you have any errors, simply log them to the console. So what I'll do is to actually say console.log in the error. So after doing that, I'll just use the state modifier function, which is set message in this case, to set the message to our data. So in this case, we see that our data is having a key of message and a message of hello world. So what I'll do is to actually say data message. And this is just enough to render our app component with our hello world message. So let's try to see that. I'm just going to come right here and refresh. So we are seeing data is non-defined. So let's try to see. So we are actually supposed to do it within here. So I'll make this function. I'll make sure that this function helps us to do that by putting in these curly braces, and then just copy this code. Sorry for this. Just copy this. Sorry. Just copy this line, which is set message, and then put it just inside here. So when I save, hoping that our client is running, I'm going to check it out. It's running successfully. So when we go back to our client and we refresh, you see that in this case, I'm seeing my message of hello world. So in this video, we've been able to carry out our first API call with React. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.